Hello. Welcome to my weekly stream, trying to improve Python's grammar documentation, making it match what's actually in the grammar. Later I'll even hopefully add railroad diagrams. So I guess I will continue where I left off. If something's unclear, then of course you can ask questions on Discord or maybe as YouTube comments. Maybe I will get notifications for that. So what I have currently is a docs generator script that gets a directory with documentation. It looks for directives that look like this, grammar snippet, and it regenerates the block after this. So if I remove this, I have it set up to run on FileSafe, so this is updating, and if I reload the file, this gets added back. So my next step will be to actually regenerate whatever comes in the body of this directive, so this file input. It will probably look a bit different than what's in the docs currently, because they don't match the grammar, but it should be very similar to what's here. And for that I will need to actually parse the grammar. I did that already before when I well, in my previous attempt, before I started rewriting this in a cleaner way. So let me look at my notes. This should be in a branch somewhere called Railroad SVG, and in this branch I also added a tool to the big generator, and this time it was called docs fragment generator, I think. So there's a lot of code that I will reuse. The main thing here will be that I will build a parser, and I'll get a grammar parser and tokenizer. So what does this do? I probably copied this from another file that the parser people have written. This has error handling, and it says error parse. Failed to parse the grammar file. I don't think I need this error handling actually, because I'm doing a tool for developers, so they should be fine with a traceback. They should actually welcome a traceback more than a human-friendly error message, so they know what to fix. I am getting the grammar file name as an argument. So here I'm getting all the top level rules. Let me add a comment. Get all the rule names and the files we're updating. Then here I parse the grammar, and here I actually update the files. Maybe this would be nicer as functions. But for now I have these comments So I will need this build parser from somewhere. Let me look at my notes. Where do I get this build parser? I get it from pegen.build. Right. And there we go. Right, so the way I'm running this is on every save in my editor. I have the enter command set up to run my tool. So it's Python tools, spec generator, docs generator, .py, and I'm giving the Python grammar the docs reference. And if that's successful, I do a git diff just to see what changed. I should probably do a git diff on the docs, just in case something changes in the docs, so I can see it in my terminal there. So now I have a grammar, and I can start generating something. Let's see how I get the top level stuff from the grammar. I'll look at my notes again. Here I had a function called generate data, and there's a dict of grammar rules. That sounds useful. And maybe I can just append for now something from the match. The match is a regular expression that will have the rule names in its group number 1. So for each rule name in, I already did this somewhere, there's some splitting here and this, I will try to find the rule and I'll print it out. Let's see what that does. And I'm not getting file input in the grammar file. Let's see what the grammar file looks like. There, and we already know this is named file, not file input. So I will need to change the name here to whatever's in the grammar file. And the same with interactive input. I think that's now named just interactive. And the same with eval. It's probably just named eval. Yeah, and my tool is getting crazy. So instead of basing this on every change, I will rerun my tool only when I change the tool itself. There we go. So right argument must be str, right? I'm not printing to the file. I need to write actual names, and it seems I have truncated the file. So let's see. Yeah, I've only written the file partially before. So let's restore this. Okay. There, and since I've restored it, I need to do my changes again. I should probably put them in Git so I don't need to do this every time I make a mistake. Where's the other one? This file, interactive. Okay, and so what that did is put in this part here. Okay, let me commit these changes, some of them, so I don't have to redo everything. So I do git add -p for patch, and now I can select the changes to do. I want to do this one but not this one, so I'll split and add this and not this. Here the same thing, split and this and not this, split and this and not that, and that's it. I ignore the rest of the changes. So I'm about to commit this. Change the role names in docs to match what's in the grammar. Right. What is this doing? Whew. My terminal went crazy. I want to change my tool to restore the docs directory before running the tool, so that when I make a mistake it's not picked up. This is one of the problems I always have when mixing handwritten content with auto-generated content in one file. It's really hard to write the tooling then, so it's usually better to separate that. But in this case, for reasons I talked about earlier, it really needs to be in one file. So what am I missing? I'm missing this indentation. So instead of calling str, I will use an f string, do 3 spaces of indentation. And now we're indented nicely. And the other thing I need to do is this block here needs to go away. The way I have it set up now is I'm ignoring ignoring lines set to false, and whenever my block starts I set it to true, but when the block ends I set it to false. Now I need to ignore 2 blocks at a time, so instead of a boolean I will need a counter that's set to 2 and counts down. So blocks to ignore set to 0 here. If I have a blank line and blocks to ignore is still positive, I decrement that, and here I should set it to 2. Will that do it? And it's not ignoring lines, it's blocks to ignore now. Right. Okay, so what that does, it will now ignore 2 blocks from the original file. So this one that it recreated, and this one that that was there before. And one more thing I need to do is add in another new line. Right, and it seems I'm also missing one other new line here. Right? And this adds an extra new line at the end. Let's see how this file looks. Right, there are now 2 new lines, which I don't really want. So let's say when everything's done, while these new lines end with an empty line, I remove the last line. And this is only valid when there are some lines, which there always will be, but it's safer to always check. Right, so now my script does exactly what I wanted it to. It inserts a grammar rule from the parsed grammar into the documentation. So this step is done. I have to step away for about half a minute. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. Sorry for the delay. By the way, feel free to unmute your mic and ask any questions if something's unclear. Maybe I'm going too quickly with this. So what have I changed here? I've parsed the grammar and added the grammar to my file. That's worthy of a commit. Right, now this will say it's unchanged, and the change isn't really good. We now have file is statements, but we probably will want to know what these statements are. So we'll need to do something like I did in the previous attempt. Whenever there's a rule mentioned here that's not a top-level rule, so it's not marked to be documented, I want to include it in this block. So how will that look? I will probably want to start splitting that up into its own function. And how will I want to structure that? So what will I want for what want this function to be like? I will probably want some function to return names, and I will call it generate rule lines, and this function will want these rules, and it will want the rule names, and it should generate the lines that appear in the file, and I will want to add the indentation and the new line in the file rating code, so the function that generates the rules isn't burdened by the formatting. So that'll be function maybe let's put it below, so this is nicer to read in order. So this will want rules, and it will want the rule names that it generates the rules for, right? And now it should go through all the rules here and output them. So something like that. Right, so that didn't do anything. But in addition to yielding the rule itself, it should investigate what's inside that rule and generate all the related ones as well. So I probably have some kind of walking function like generate related rules. There's generate all descendants. Yep. This is okay. So for each descendant, in the descendants of this rule, let's name it. I will want to check if the descendant is reference to a rule. How do I do that? It's probably here as well. So if it's a reference, but reference is my own rule. If it's this name leaf, then I want to include that descendant as well. So if this descendant is a name leaf, do I have pgen? No. Imported, so pgen dot grammar. So if this happens, I want to well, yield the descendant as well. Yield the rule named by the descendants some property. probably named that's named value. And now I have to generate all descendants. There's a helper for that in a grammar visualizer. I hope. No, there's not. Right, we have children, and it'll be possible to adopt the children function. Don't need type hints for now. So for value in node, we yield from the value, otherwise we yield from this value. So what I will need to do is for each child in this value, which is a list, I will want to yield from generate all descendants of that child. Otherwise, I will yield from generate all descendants of the value itself. No, that's I want to go through the value itself like this, probably. It's not a method, doesn't need a self. And where's the issue here? Oh, I already have for value in node here. Right, so I don't need that. And maybe I got lost. Time for print-based debugging. Okay, so this is going through all the elements it needs to go through, but I see the problem now. It's not yielding anything, just yielding from, so it's including all these subgenerators, but it never actually yields anything useful. So I need to yield the node itself. Okay, now I made it yield all of these functions, all of these elements of the rule. Let's also print out the type, so it's a rule, an RHS, an alt, blah blah blah. And we have a named leaf here called statements. But I see the problem is that we get a rule named endMarker, which is this named item here. Well, maybe the print should go before the yield so we see. So there's a name leaf called endMarker. In the string representation it gets shortened to $, which we probably want to avoid. But the problem is that it's not a named leaf like this, a reference to another rule. It's a reference to a token, which doesn't have a rule here. So what I will need to do here is try to get the rule and if it doesn't exist, indentation's weird for some reason. So this would be key error. I don't Don't do anything. Okay. So what my code does now is to the documentation, it adds the reference rule. So if a file references statements here, I get information about what a statement is. That looks pretty good for now. But the problem now is that it doesn't recurse into the statement. So what I will need to do now is add in either recursion or a loop, and I will need to keep adding rules as they're encountered. So whenever I yield something, I should probably add it to some queue of descendants, so I have a chance to go through them all. Let's make a copy of rule names. And then while something is in the rule names waiting to be documented, I pop it off. Treat it as a queue. And for the descendants here, instead of yielding their textual description, I will add them to the rules to be added, and I will want to add the name rather than the rule itself. Right, there we go. Now it's taking a very long time because it's going through everything recursively over and over again. I should probably limit it to only document each rule once, otherwise it'll probably never finish. Do that with a set. Whenever I output something, I add it to the set. And whenever it's already in the set, I skip it. Right, now it doesn't take forever, but it does take a reasonably long time, and it adds everything that's reachable from this file to the documentation. And why is that? Because I don't yet have a complete list of these top level rules, a complete list of things that are documented somewhere else in the documentation, right? So I probably want statement up here with statements up here with file. I might want statement documented in another section. So if I was already done, there would be a directive like grammar snippet statement somewhere else in the documentation, and that would mean I would skip this. So how to implement that? This generate rule lines will need to have a list of all the top level rule names. So top level rule names. Hopefully it's oh, it's a dict. Interesting, why not? And what it will do is if the name of the rule we're adding is a top level one, then we skip adding it. So it's if it's not a top level one, we add it. And I will need to add this argument. Line's too long, so let's format that. Right. And now the problem is just that I don't have everything in the documentation. Until I change the docs, I will just hard code a simple list of top level rules. So let's see. This compound statement, I don't want that in the top level documentation. It needs to be documented somewhere else. And there's simple statements as well. And I will want to do the same for expression here. So that's a set. I'll add it to this one. Right, and now I'm not going through all the grammar, I'm just adding the non-top level rules that are referenced from the one I'm documenting. That looks good. What changed? So I am adding a temporary set of top level rules that aren't added yet. My generate rule lines function is getting a new argument for top level rule names. Oh, I didn't have this function yet. So I'm getting a function to generate rule lines, and I'm getting a function to generate all these sentence overrule. Looks good. Right, now I should probably add a comment here about what this top level rules is. it's not really clear from the name, but maybe let's go a bit further before I document all of this. So, what would be the next step? I guess the next step could be to either write a Sphinx extension that can actually process this new grammar snippet directive, or I can go on and try to simplify these. So how does this how does this compare to origin main? What's the Git syntax for that? There's some Git syntax that gets me only the diff that I'm interested in. Oh, that's 3 dots. So now instead of production list that's currently in the Python docs, which has file input as new line statement, we have a grammar snippet which says a file is statements, and a statements is one or more statements, and a statement is compound or simple, so the statement should probably be one of the top level rules. Then instead of production list for interactive input, we have a grammar snippet for interactive, which directly references compound statements and simple statements. Right. Then for instead of production list for eval input, which is an expression list, we have eval which has expressions. And then there's the tooling for that. Right. So let me jump into writing a Sphinx extension. Probably have something like that in my notes from last time. Docs, tools, extensions, and there's a pack fragment extension here. Right, so I spent some time learning how to write a Sphinx extension some time back, and apparently what I need is to have a setup function. This will be an extension called grammar snippet, living in the docs, tools, extension, grammar underscore snippet.py. So what this will do, this as a config value, I don't really want that. Builder initted, builder initted is some signal that says Sphinx is ready now, and I want to initialize my extension. So, right. And the setup then returns the version of the extension and whether it's parallel read safe or not. This extension will be only looking at one file, so it should be parallel safe. Right, and then what I need to do is here my previous attempt was loading a data file, which I don't need to do now because everything's in the RST. So I will define a directive class for Sphinx. Call it grammar snippet directive, and it has a bunch of configuration. It has contact, it has arguments. Well, let's say it has one what are arguments? Arguments are arguments is the stuff after here. So this one. So let's say it has a required argument and the final argument white space. I need to look up the docs for that. I forget what I was doing all that time ago. Okay, a directive, number of required arguments, optional arguments, and may the final argument contain white space. So I guess if I set this thing to true and I have one required argument, then Sphinx will give me everything that's after this double colon as one string with space separated names. Hopefully that's what it means. And then I will have some options. One is called group and one is called generated by. And this maps option names to validator functions. Validator functions take a single parameter, the option argument or none, and should validate it or convert it to proper form. Several possible useful validators are in DocuTools parsers RT directives. I guess I'm using them, and one of them should be directives unchanged. Hopefully that's the same thing as converting to string, except if the option is none, it stays none. I would hope that's what this does. Alright, let's go back to my notes. The directive then has a run method documented here. Must process the arguments, option, and content and return a list of nodes. Right. Okay. So my run method will get the rule names from here, and I don't really need to do anything with the rule names because they're here as input for the tool that generates the body of this text, which is not Sphinx itself. So I can just ignore these. I don't want to ignore the group because I want to turn in this grammar snippet to something similar, well, to exactly this production list that was here before. So that the syntax for that is production list and then the group name. So I will need to get the group name from my options, and I hope it's just self.options. Oh, it's not class and name, it's group and generated by. And I will want the group name here. Right. And how do I get the body? Name, arguments, options. This is a dictionary. Content is given as a view list. What is a view list? Please, thanks. Tell me what view list is. List with extended functionality. Okay. What? Well, I hope this is a list of lines, maybe? Oh, I think I need to opt in for having content in the first place. The constructor takes a list of strings, which are lines, and a source document name. And the append method takes a line and a source name as well. Oh, interesting. The append method takes a line and a source name. And does insert. So it's a list with extended functionality. And what I want to do with that functionality is I basically want to take this block of text or of lines, and I want to prefix or add in another line like this to the front, and that's basically everything I need. And then I want to parse the whole resulting thing as restructured text. So I hope this has an insert function where I can add a line to the beginning. Right, so this is content. Self.content and to the beginning, so line number 1, I want to put a line that says production list :, and group name. The rest of the thing stays as is. And then I want to parse the directive content as RST. And for that we have self.state.nested parse, which is maybe documented? No. So how do I run this? Self-nested parse self result node. parse directive content. Both APIs parse content into a given node. So I create a node. And then I do either nested parse with titles, self-state, self-result, and node. What is state? State and state machine, which controls parsing. Switch source input allows to change a target file during nested parse. Useful to mixed contents. Probably don't want to do that. Right, if I don't need the wrapping node, I can use any concrete node type and return the children from the directive. Okay, so I create a direct paragraph, then I call nested parse, which I assume will use this content, and then I discard this node by returning its children. I don't know what result is. What is result? Probably something I need. The 0 probably something I need, and then there's the target node. Okay, let's see. Oh, and I need some imports to import this directive and these directives, but I have all of that in here, right? So from docutils, import bunch of stuff, nodes, directives, production list. I don't need that. This is hopefully fine. Meanwhile, Sphinx now says this is an unknown directive type, and I guess that's because this grammar snippet.py extension isn't registered. It should be registered somewhere in conf.py. There's a list of extensions, and I guess these are module names. So I need to register grammar underscore snippet. Right, let's see how Sphinx likes that. Right, some. Oh, I don't have this init grammar snippet function. So init grammar snippet is a function that takes an app, which is a Sphinx app, I guess, and it calls add a directive. And it adds a directive called grammar snippet and sets it to the corresponding class. Now let's do some pep8 beautification and run that. Okay. And here we get a type error inserting non-view list with no source given. Right, so so does Sphinx build have an option to give me the full traceback so I know where to look? Show full traceback on exception. .t. How do I do it with make? I think that's Sphinx opts is -t. And now it will run Sphinx with -t here, and I get a full exception. And I get a Sphinx parallel error. Right, so that I have this JN. Guess what I need to do is now copy this command line and run it manually without running it in parallel. And I need to put it in the directory. It's much slower when it's not running in parallel. There we go. When it's not spawning subprocesses, it can get the actual exception back. Right, so in Docutor state machine, in the insert function, we have this raise, and I hope that this file line 122 will tell me what the problem is. Okay, so when I'm inserting, I need to give a source argument to the insert method. So what is this source? What is this source? So I guess I can look at some hints here. The append takes a source name. What is... I hope it's just the name of a file. And what is this offset? Source of each line and the offset of each line from the beginning of its source. What is source? I hope it can be just a string. Now let's use file. there we go. And now I have a mismatch import. I'm importing nodes directly. Which is a cheap error to make if the tests take a second, but here the test means reading all of Python's documentation. Now it takes a while. Oh. Okay, so I did state nested parse self result 0 node. Which I took from here. But apparently there is no result. Huh. Okay, what do I do? Is there actually use of nested parse in Python documentation extensions? Oh, here it uses self-content, not self-result. Which makes sense. Okay, so it's not a result, it's the content. Maybe I should send a pull request to Sphinx docs. And there we go. Explicit markup ends without a blank line. Unexpected indent. Huh. Okay, let's see what the self-content is. Hopefully print-based debugging will work in a Sphinx run. Keeping my fingers crossed. Ah, there we go. So we have production list, Python grammar, then some rules, and I see the rules are not indented. Ah, right. So this this self-content view list is not indented, and because I'm turning it into a directive, well, I'm adding a new header on it. I also need to indent it. Let's see if the state machine thing allows me to set items. Okay, that's, I don't want to set a slice. It looks like I can just change all the lines. The lines should be strings, so I should be able to indent them. insert a production list. Maybe I want to look at the SPI specific extension. Hopefully that does it nicer. So what does this does? Oh, it uses content and parses the content. It uses a content offset. What is this nested parse anyway? Okay, so apparently it's okay to just use content here. But I'm not sure if it's okay to modify it. I need to do something special. Oh, maybe not. Let's see how this works. I should get a review on this from some Sphinx expert in the end. And they'll tell me all the things that I did wrong. Okay, so this is now what what hopefully Sphinx is parsing. And there we go. Ha! Okay, now we still get an error, but we get an error because we're documenting Python grammar statement, this thing. And that's just because my tool generated that and it already exists in the documentation elsewhere. So the fix for that would be to go back to my tool and say that statement is a top-level rule. It exists somewhere in the documentation, is defined on its own. Statement new line probably doesn't work that way, and this compound and simple then need to stay here, and expression hopefully is documented somewhere else as well. So let me rerun the tool. That gets rid of the statement line, and now I can rerun Sphinx. Meanwhile, I can adjust this line to be nicer, and here I can also do some formatting. Nice. Okay, Sphinx warning, top level components. Unknown directive type grammar snippet. What? Didn't I just add a directive called grammar snippet? How does PySpecific do this? This calls add directive directly in setup. It doesn't go through a function, so maybe I want to do that instead of this connect. But I really want this grammar snippet directive to exist. Input detail availability. It's all there. Maybe I even want to add this into PySpecific. So it's not its own little file. PySpecific has a bunch of stuff. Almost there. And we have a problem. There is no grammar snippet, even though I'm adding it here. What happened? So let's see how implementation detail is done. This has content, has argument white space. Does a bunch of stuff and then returns a list of nodes. It's a subclass of directive. That should all be good. One here is Sphinx directive and the other is directive. Which one am I using? Well, probably just directive. Why am I getting this error here? Unknown directive type grammar snippet. What am I doing wrong here? Converting this to production list. And I see my prints don't trigger anymore. What changed? Oh, I know now. When I ran the tool, I ran git restore doc. Silly error. And that means while I did save my grammar snippet extension, I didn't save this registration. So once again, this is something that comes from mixing auto-generated and human-written stuff in the same file. Sometimes you just want to revert things to the way they were, and the changes done by hand get mixed up with the ones that are generated, and it's just a mess. Unfortunately, in this case, it's a necessary mess, I think. HTML pages are in here. My browser takes full paths, so let's take the full path and see what is now in library. Not library reference, top level components. And this is exactly what I wanted to see, and this matches what's in the grammar file. Perfect. So let's clean this up. I mentioned adding this to PySpecific, which has a bunch of directives already, so I don't introduce a new file just for one directive. Let me take a look around here about how it's organized. Apparently it was last touched a decade ago, but it has Sphinx 6, so that's good. Does it import everything I need? So I need nodes, directive, and directives. Nodes, directive, and directives. No. Docutils, parsers, RST. How are options handled in this? Oh, there are no options. Okay. So I need to import directives in addition to directive. That takes care of the imports. Then I want to add this class here. So these are some roles: implementation detail, availability, directives, audit events, documenting decorators, a bunch of mixing, version removal and deprecations, miscellaneous news, topic help for PyDoc, documenting opcodes and PDB commands, patch parentex types, okay, that looks good. Okay, there's support for documenting PDB commands, so let's add a new section like the above here. Support for auto-generated syntax snippets. There's my class. And it will transform grammar snippet to Sphinx native production list. That is turn something like what I have here. And the restructured text indentation with 3 spaces is just so weird, and it so doesn't work with editors. And this should be turned into something like production list, Python grammar. Let's use what's actually in the documentation right now. Okay, one more indent here. Should be enough for documentation, and then what I need is just to add the directive and the setup function here after all the other directives. I don't know how this file is ordered. Right, now I can delete this thing, and I should remove it from configuration. And hopefully everything will work the same. Extensions changed, so everything gets redone here. And I forgot some debug prints. These. See how content is repeated. And I want to say why I'm ignoring these required arguments. We have content, we have these two options, and well, this should be let's not get too much into details here. Okay, what changed? Oh, for top level components, I'll probably add that as a separate commit. I'm no longer documented statement. I'm adding a new directive class to the by-specific extension, and I did some reformatting here. So adding statement to the temporary list of top level directives. What's the next change? Add the directive Sphinx extension. And this is just white space. Right. So I'm really happy with how this works. Now I have my build with grammar rules taken directly from the documentation. Oh, I see. This is wrong. What happened here? This expressions should be part of my grammar snippet, and it shouldn't appear later like that. That's weird. Why does it happen here and not for the other ones? So first of all, is my documentation out of date? Why does it say that everything's out of date? What's changed? Succeeded, and this thing is still here, so my extension is not good. Huh. Okay, what's wrong? Wait, first of all, if I run this again, will it say that everything's out of date again? Yeah. Why doesn't the cache work? So this should use up all the content. Should it not? Am I using nested parts wrong? This always uses self-content offset. Maybe I should look. Well, let me try this, and then I'll try to look at what nested parse is. Might be in DocuTils somewhere. this project is structured. Yeah, that didn't help. What does nested parse look like? So it's getting a block, which is self-content, input offset, which I hope is self-content offset, and a node to put things into. It says match titles, state machine class, state machine keyword arguments. So if state machine class is none, it uses a state machine from self, gets a block length, and I guess that comes from this view list, whose length is the length of data. Okay. This, I guess if the length was wrong, things would be bad. Does this does something interesting. When I insert a line into this view list, it updates its parent. Maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe when Sphinx goes through this file, the added line somehow confuses it, so it thinks it's read up to here, and reads this final line again. What this block is this the same as the view, as the list view thing? This returns a new offset. Wonder if that is a problem somehow. Am I allowed to disconnect. Should I just try to parse it as some top-level document? Is there a good way to disconnect this view list? Is that even what's happening? No. That didn't work. Well, if I don't parse it at all, will the current line change? Why is it? Why is it adding this thing? It's a block quote. It's still there. What is happening here? Is this thing present in the node that I've constructed? And let me see if I can add an individual file to this command line thing here. I'm quite lost in it, this. So paragraph production list. Now this looks like it's so in the production list it appears only once, but then Sphinx somehow takes it and reads it again. Why does it do that? Is this approach wrong? Can I maybe copy this view list somehow and... Oh, it has a disconnect method, which sets self-parent to none. That doesn't work. If I put some text here, will the issue go away? Or is it because this is at the very end of the file? Yep. It is. This is strange. I just leave a bunch of blank lines here. I have no idea what's happening here. It's not there anymore. Oh, wow. Wow. What is going on in here? So there's a difference between ending this line and doing nothing else. Which basically repeats the last line of the document. And if I add another extra blank line at the end of the file, the issue goes away. Wow. Wow. I have no idea why that happens. But well, it's probably better to ask a Sphinx expert, I guess. So what I will do here for now is add a to-do comment saying that it would be nice to trim the final blank line. But that causes Sphinx, well, that causes the Sphinx extension well, that causes the final line to be read twice by Sphinx. So I will not trim final blank lines in my tool. Hopefully if I rerun it, it will be okay, yeah. So I will add an extra blank line here and deal with it later. Well, I'll have a week or so to think about it, and then I'll see if I manage to solve it. Yeah. Now I see I have about 6 minutes before I want to end the stream, and I've just made a commit, which makes for a nice place to end. So I will leave it here for now, and next week I will want to I will want to look into generating this bit nicer. For example, put optional parts in square brackets like they are in the rest of the documentation. Put an end marker instead of $. Maybe simplify things a bit, like if there's statement new line here, it doesn't really have to be its own rule. This can be inlined into here. And I will want to be a bit smarter about adding parentheses to stuff, which basically means I will need to recreate the parse tree as my own classes and somehow simplify those. And maybe I will get an idea about why this weird issue is happening. But for now, thanks for watching. I see we did have some viewers. Somebody is even watching YouTube right now. So just reminder, it's better to join on Discord, where if you unmute, you can even ask me questions. So in case anything is not clear, you can just ask and I'll be happy to answer. But if you want to stay anonymous, of course, look on YouTube. Right, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. See you next week.